welcome to DRM News Global. We're diving into the stack of sources, the reports, the articles, all the notes you've probably seen swirling around.
Yeah, and the idea is simple, really. We pull out the key bits, the essential facts.
Give you that informed shortcut, basically, with the context you need.
Exactly. And today, we are definitely plunging into a story that, well, it sent shockwaves through the wrestling world this week.
Oh, yeah. Mariah May's surprise debut in WWE NXT. It's a big one.
It's been the main talking point, absolutely. We've gathered, a range of sources, industry reports, news pieces, specific notes about her leaving AEW, and then a pretty dramatic arrival in WW.
So our mission today, sift through it all, figure out how she got here, what actually went down during the debut.
And maybe most importantly, what does it all mean? For her, for NXT, we're aiming to give you the whole picture based on everything we've seen reported.
And honestly, for anyone following the behind-the-scenes stuff, this felt like it was brewing for a bit. But the way they actually did it, still pretty impactful. So let's start right there, where the sources say it happened, this week's NXT show.
Okay, yeah. So if you were watching, there was this segment focused on the new NXT Women's Champion, Jacy Jayne.
Who just won the title last week. Right?
Exactly. So she's in the ring, and you know how it goes. The challengers start emerging. A bunch of women hit the ring, staking their claim.
And it turns into a big brawl. Standard stuff, almost.
Pretty much. A classic wrestling setup.
Yeah.
Potential contenders all vying for that top spot. But then, right in the middle of all that chaos, we got the signal.
Ah, the signal.
Yeah, the arena lights just went out.
And in wrestling, that means something big is usually about to happen, doesn't it?
Almost always. It's like a universal code,
Wow.
Expect the unexpected, an arrival, a turn, something major. And when they came back up this time,
There she was.
there she was, Mariah May, standing under a single spotlight, right in the middle of the ring.
That visual alone, just her in the light, everyone else frozen, must have been really striking.
Yeah, it immediately set her apart, above the fray, kind of. And she didn't waste any time, did she? Sources say she went straight for the mic.
Jumped right into a promo. What did she say?
It was very direct, very confident. She basically looked at all the women brawling around her and just declared, "I finally arrived in NXT."
No hesitation.
None. And then she told them they could call her the next NXT Women's Champion.
Wow. Okay. Bold.
And she finished it off with a line that definitely got people talking. The best women's division in the world just got a lot more glamorous.
A lot more glamorous. Okay, that's a statement piece right there. Sets a tone. Speaks to, well, a lot of self-belief.
Absolutely. Engineered for impact.
But to really get the weight of that,
Yeah.
and why she could just walk in and say that, we need to look back, right, her time in AEW. The sources really emphasize where she was coming from.
Oh, definitely. That context is, it's crucial because before she stepped into that NXT spotlight, she wasn't exactly unknown.
Far from it.
She was a former AEW Women's World Champion. And that championship history, that's vital. It gives her instant status, instant credibility when she walks into a new place like NXT.
She's not starting from scratch. She's arriving as someone who's already held a major world title.
Precisely. And her exit from AEW, it wasn't like completely out of the blue either. The reports leading up to this debut, they'd been hinting at it.
Sources mentioned her last big match for AEW was at the Revolution PPV, wasn't it? Against Toni Storm.
Yes, that match against Storm. A lot of people saw that as the likely end of her run there, especially since she'd lost the AEW Women's World title to Toni Storm before that at Grand Slam Australia.
Right, she had a decent reign with that title, too.
Yeah, 174 days. So, she was operating at a high level there. That final match against Storm felt like narratively closing a chapter.
And the clearest sign that things were really over with AEW, according to all the sources we looked at, that came just the week before she showed up in NXT.
That's the one. Her profile vanished from the official AEW website.
Which is usually the confirmation, isn't it?
Yeah, the reports consistently say that's the standard, like the sign that a wrestler is no longer under contract or part of the active roster. It basically confirms she was or was about to become a free agent.
Okay, so this wasn't a case of someone being suddenly released. What do the sources tell us about how she left and her contract situation?
Well, the picture painted by the sources is that AEW knew this was coming. She signed back in the fall of 2023.
Right.
And a really key detail in the reporting is that it was specifically a 2-year deal. And crucially...
An option year.
Exactly. It didn't have that extra option year that lets the company extend the contract on their own. So her contract had a definite end date unless they negotiated something new.
Interesting.
And the sources suggest AEW is pretty aware that, yeah, she'd likely be leaving when those 2 years were up. Now, we don't know the specifics of any offer they might have made to keep her.
But the general feeling is she left on good terms.
That's the consensus from the sources, yeah. Not a messy split. Seems more like a planned move based on how her original contract was set up. Remember, she was introduced initially as this huge Tony Storm superfan, which kicked off their whole storyline together.
That contract detail really stands out.
Yeah.
Suggests maybe she or her representation had an eye on flexibility down the road from the start.
Could be. Strategic planning.
But okay, so she finishes up with the AEW. Let's talk about the destination, WWE. Because while the debut itself was a surprise moment, her heading there wasn't exactly top secret, was it?
Oh, not at all. The sources are pretty much unanimous on this, calling it wrestling's worst-kept secret for weeks beforehand. The speculation was just everywhere.
You really couldn't avoid it if you follow this stuff. But was it just fan chatter, or was there solid reporting behind it?
Yeah, there was solid reporting backing it up. You had established names like Mike Johnson at PW Insider, Sean Ross Sapp at Fightful Select. They'd been saying for weeks her AEW time was ending, and, the expectation was WWE fairly soon. And reports were citing sources inside WWE, too, confirming that, yeah, people internally were anticipating her starting relatively soon.
So the general direction was known. What about the specifics of her actually signing with WWE? What do the reports say there?
They confirmed she signed a multi-year deal, and what seems noteworthy is how quickly WWE apparently moved once she was available.
They were interested right away.
Seems like it. The reporting uses phrases like the wheels had been in motion, suggesting WWE had their eye on her, but, and this is a key legal point the sources emphasize, no official talks or signing could happen until she was actually genuinely a free agent. Done with AEW.
Right, gotta respect those contract boundaries. Can't tamper.
Exactly. Standard practice, but important to note.
Okay, so the signing itself wasn't the shocker, even if the timing was maybe uncertain. But the debut on NXT, that seems like it was kept incredibly quiet, especially these days. How'd they pull that off, according to the sources?
That's actually one of the more fascinating details in the reports. Despite everyone kind of knowing she was likely coming, the when and how of her debut, that was guarded really closely.
A deliberate effort.
Very deliberate, according to the sources, to make sure that moment on TV felt like a genuine surprise. It wasn't like common knowledge backstage in WWE.
Really?
Yeah, the reports say it was handled by a really small, tight-knit group. They knew she'd sign, they knew the plan was NXT this week, but beyond that, kept very quiet.
How quiet?
So quiet that apparently even the talent standing in the gorilla position, right behind the curtain, they reportedly didn't know she was debuting until literally moments before that segment started.
Wow. That's some serious operational security in the age of leaks.
It really is. Shows how much they wanted that genuine, oh my God, reaction from the audience.
Okay, so she's arrived. The rumors are confirmed.
Yeah.
Dramatic entrance made. What's the immediate impact? Where does she fit into NXT right now, especially that women's division she just laid claim to?
Well, the context the sources provide here is it's vital. You look at the NXT women's division lately. There's been a pretty big exodus to the main roster, mostly Raw.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot of top names moved up recently.
Exactly. Former NXT women's champs like Roxanne Perez, Julia, Stephanie Walker all debuted on Raw pretty quickly, one after another. Plus, Jordynne Grace is widely expected to be called up any minute now, too, after her recent appearances.
So the top end of the division kind of thinned out.
Significantly. And this is where Mariah May's arrival is so impactful, as the sources point out. You had Jacy Jayne win the title from Walker last week, which already shook things up.
Maybe a bit unexpectedly for some.
Perhaps. And now, in walks Mariah May. With her AEW title history, her existing profile, she is instantly, according to the analysis, one of the biggest stars. Not just in the women's division, but arguably one of the biggest stars on the entire NXT brand, full stop.
Just like that. Day one.
Day one. Her arrival doesn't just fill a gap left by the call-ups, it injects a brand new top-tier player when the division really needed one.
That kind of instant star power, it just changes the whole equation, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
She walks in, and she's presented as being right at the top. Now, there was one other little detail from the debut, something the sources noticed was missing.
Yeah, this is where you gotta pay attention to the small things, the nuances. During that whole debut segment, her promo, the commentary reaction.
They didn't actually say her name.
Exactly. Neither she nor the commentary team ever referred to her as Mariah May on the air. They talked about her arrival, the glamour, her intentions, but not the name itself.
That seems odd. for someone with her level of recognition coming in.
It does stand out, and the reporting suggests there's likely a reason for it.
Which is?
The sources indicate that this omission, leaving the name out, is probably a strong signal that a name change is coming.
So maybe not Mariah May going forward.
Could be. Might not be a huge change, maybe just a tweak. But the reports suggest it's reasonable to expect she'll be formally introduced under a slightly different name pretty soon.
Any precedent for that?
Yeah, they cite examples from WWE development history. Like, Ricky Starks was briefly called Ricky Saints when he first appeared in developmental way back. It seems like a pattern. Sometimes the debut happens, name might be held back or slightly different, then the final version gets rolled out.
So the silence around the name is maybe a deliberate creative choice, telegraphing a potential rebrand or just a slight adjustment under the WWE umbrella.
That's what the analysis from the sources points towards, yeah. Lets them get the big visual impact, the statement of intent, but holds back the final piece of her WWE identity, builds a little extra intrigue maybe before they fully commit to her name and branding going forward.
Definitely keeps you watching to see what they call her next week, I suppose. Okay, let's quickly pull together the main threads from all these sources then.
Sounds good.
We've got a major former champion from AEW making this highly anticipated yet somehow still very surprising and secretive debut in WWE NXT.
Yep, confirming all those long-standing rumors about where she'd land.
She's immediately positioned as a top star, maybe the top star, in an NXT women's division that just saw a lot of its main players move up.
Right, filling a newly created void at the top.
And based on how the debut went down, specifically the lack of her name being used, there's strong speculation she might get a new or slightly altered name soon.
That pretty much covers the key takeaways from the reporting we've gone through.
So let's bring this back to you, the listener, watching how this plays out on NXT. You've got JC Jane, who just won the NXT Women's Championship last week. And now Mariah May arrives, big entrance, immediately says she's the next champion. What did this sudden arrival of this high-profile figure mean for that title picture right now? How's her presence likely to reshape things with all those other top stars gone?
Yeah, I mean, it fundamentally shifts the landscape, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The big question now is, how fast do they move her towards a title shot? Does she jump the queue?
Or does someone else currently in NXT step up to try and stop her? Or maybe even challenge Jane before she gets the chance?
Exactly. Her debut isn't just adding another person to the roster. It feels like it could be the start of the next major story arc for the whole division. It really shakes everything up.
Definitely something significant for you to keep an eye on as this unfolds on NXT TV in the coming weeks. We've looked at the sources, pulled out the key info, and hopefully given you that shortcut to understanding this major development.
Until next time.
Until our next deep dive here on DRM News Global.